Morning. We are continuing our discussion on postmodernism and example. Have discussed a bit of it and regarding the major play on which we are going to analyze or we are going to apply this theory of postmodernism. I introduced you with the characters and what the main theme all those are. And even regarding the language games, that's what we have to discuss today. Here we discuss how this transcendent status, again the characters, what they are doing on stage or what they are doing, or how they are waiting, and that waiting is almost a wasting of time. And in on the grounds or in the light of postmodernist stand, how we will see a different how we will come across a different take on this waiting. Okay, yes. Now just listen back and again the language games, their language, their conversation, the discussion they go on while waiting, they go on with while waiting, very silly things that they do while this waiting, all these are very important. And we already told like how one particular grand narrative or any narrative is applicable or valid only in its own context. That's why I gave you the example of this masks becoming compulsory in the COVID-19 pandemic time in any country. Now it's worldwide. It's preferable and even promoted by by rule. It's instructed by the governments of different nations that citizen wear mask or carry personal hand sanitizer. But we know how it is irrelevant in a context where, in a situation where during a time period when there is no pandemic at all. The same way we told about the language rules or some rules of certain games. A game of chess, certain rules are there for the movement of different icons, and that is applicable, that is relevant in that game and its own context only. It doesn't have anything to do with a football game. In the same way, we are going to look at Vladimir, Estragon. They are waiting, they are making their conversation or the things that they do while this waiting. And from the outside, when we look from outside, we feel them like wasting time. They are such fools without taking care of the wasting of time. They are spending time and they are spending their time. They are waiting and waiting and waiting for a person whom they do not actually know, the identity of whom they are not assured of. Even if they are not sure, even they are not even sure that if the person, that Godot, Godot, it's pronounced to be Godot, will come or not. And even if he comes, whether he is going to help them in any way or not, they do not know all this. They do not know all this. For Neelan, Vladimir and Estragon in Beckett's play Waiting for Godot engage in language games of this type. What type? Like which is applicable to them only. That is, a philosophical discussion is relevant in its own context. If you talk about your philosophy, if you talk about your philosophical ideas to a 10th standard, so not just 10, not a 5th standard student or a 1st standard student, it's not going to be relevant to that person at all. That's why these language games are particularly valid in their own context only. And but the problem is, without realizing their full significance. The problem with Vladimir and Estragon is they are not really confident in what they are doing. At times they are lamenting over their very existence. Okay, and why are we waiting? Why are we doing all this? All these problems are there throughout. That is already always there with them in the process of their waiting or their through their speech. We find that they are not really comfortable in what they are doing, and actually, such language games, the postmodernists agree, are all we have. There is no transcendent reality behind them, and they are actually self validating and provide us with the social identity we seek. Actually, when we see these people doing all those, like waiting and wasting their time, because we don't know whether this Godot will come or help them in one way or other, so we feel them like wasting their time unlikely, in an unlikely manner. Okay, but and that is the very context in which I would like you to think about the example that I gave you as a brief introduction today. When before starting the lecturing, I just gave you a brief idea on a particular way. A student sitting holding the book full time, you see that the person is reading, but actually doesn't grasp anything. And another one who has examination tomorrow, who is going to write an examination tomorrow, but is watching TV. So when you look from outside, you think that the other one, the first one is spending time in a fruitful way, and the other one is wasting time. But in effect, actually, what is the reality or what is the fact behind this? The first person who is holding the book, it's right, but and you are happy when you look from outside about a student who is going to write an examination is with the book, so that the student is very careful about its future, its examination, and the parents find it very happy. Parents stay happy about it. But actually, the student just reads and reads and reads, but doesn't grasp anything. And all the possibility is that the other one is already prepared well for the examination, so that he or she is relaxing by watching TV. But the problem with the onlookers, the outsiders, is that you always set a grand narrative, the idea of everything absolute, or the absolute of for everything. Like if you have examination, you are supposed to be with the text, the note, the study materials throughout the day or the recent days before the examination. This is the grand narrative, and that's why our readings, our prejudices work upon people and whatever they do, and you try to interrupt them. Like you might, parents may say like, why are you watching TV? Why don't you take a note to that second student, second example, second one? They may be scolding, they may be making irritating comments. So this is the problem with our grand narratives. So they are self-validating. Actually, each one and their own language game is validating in their own life and their own context. Watching TV before the examination, before the examination, watching TV or listening to some favorite music may be a relaxing technique, relaxing mode. It may be giving relaxation for the student, maybe giving more memorizing possibility for the student. Once you are relaxed, you can do things better, not just for examination. So that also is there, but you don't try to see that possibility. You try to do the reverse every time. You try to set a standard for everything, and you try to blame people. But what these people say, postmodernism says that this is actually self-validating. Their waiting is their matter, their business. It's none of our business. Why are we worried about their wasting time? They may be finding some pleasure out of that, pleasure in that activity. But Vladimir and his dragon hanker for some deeper or transcendent reality over and above this. And even problem is with them also. If they are happy, if they they express themselves to be very comfortable in that waiting, they are truly and completely postmodern. They do not have any lamenting, or they do not lament over what they are doing. But here we do not see them completely in that way. We see them always hankering for some deeper or transcendent reality over and above this. At times they say like, why are we waiting? They are always nagging. They are complaining about their very existence. So thus says Neelan, it is a play of Vladimir and his dragon's words, not any agreed upon meaning for them, which constitutes their social bond. So that's they are spending time in that way should not be a matter of concern, or at least a point for blaming them in any regard. If they are just people on stage or if we come across such people doing such silly things in their life, that is up to them. That is up to them. So waiting for, so there is no social bond. They are not supposed to behave or spend their time according to the norms of the society. So societal ways and perspectives are always setting some standards and absolutes for you are behaving in such and such way. Think about my coming in the dress of a clown to your class, so that I am blamed or I am laughed at. So why? Because being a teacher, you expect me to come in formal dress. But cross-dressing and all those have become a feature of the modern time because of the same. This is they are trying to do that. Through that you are trying to challenge that such absolutes or fixed notions of society. Who told you that this only is right? Who told you that the other possibilities are wrong or invalid? It's up to us. And why are you trying to comment upon everything? This can be a question that is asked through not asking, or this is the way you have to find out the validity in other possibilities or other perspectives as well. Waiting for legitimation of their society in Godot is from the beginning unnecessary. Actually, as a postmodernist reading, we can say that this waiting for legitimation, Godot, that name is very deliberate in that regard. Godot is connected with the God, the concept of God. Well, you take that not as on behalf of, on the grounds of religion, you have to say, you always stick on to something powerful than you, something privileged than you, someone privileged than you. Before taking a decision, you don't if you don't have the power, if you don't have the confidence to think, to make use of your own brain, to take decisions for yourself on your own grounds, you always run for the help of others. You seek permission for everything. Even to buy a cloth, you want to get suggestion from others. Everywhere you see this Godot concept, and you are waiting for legitimation. What do you mean by legitimation? Legitimizing means you by law it's valid, you make it valid, you ratify something. You get something ratified by some powerful or agency. Here they are waiting for Godot. It's almost like that. Vladimir and Istragan then have difficulty in accepting this postmodern view that gaming is enough. But what we see about them, they have the difficulty in accepting this postmodern view that gaming is enough. Why? They are unhappy about that waiting. They are nagging. As I told you, this already they are frustrated. We see their frustration in the way they speak, in the way their expression on faces. And even see, but what about Lyotard's book? Just gaming is the title of one of Lyotard's books. Means Lyotard, he defines postmodernism to be the incredulity towards meta-narratives. Means what? Already all meta-narratives are we don't have to validate them in that way. That's valid in their own context, but we don't have to take those to be the yardstick for everything and every moment, for every time. They wish to have the security provided by some grand narrative or guarantee and absolute validation. They wish to have the security provided by some grand narrative. Here we see these main characters, two of those people who are waiting, Vladimir and Istragan, wish to have the security provided by some grand narrative. In other words, we all are, in one sense, we all are like this. You write something, you feel like, if I publish this, this will be difficulty, this will be causing difficulty for me, for others, my parents will blame me, or my family members will blame me, or my see all those difficulties. If you feel like you are again waiting for this legitimation, like if you start waiting, if you think about waiting for legitimation, being a writer or social activist from others, you will never do anything fruitful, because no one will, you cannot expect validity or agreement or appreciation from all the people for every act that you are doing, especially if you are taking a rebellious stand. And here we come across two people who want to be secured, or the security, who wish for the security provided by some grand narrative and absolute validation. Through that they need absolute validation. This desired comprehensive reassurance is linked in the play with the Christian notions of redemption, which recuperate, meaning roughly explain and give significance to the apparently meaningless details and trials of daily life. Think about that. These people are waiting for Godot. They may be in want of some instructions, some maybe some anyway they are taking that Godot to be very powerful, privileged, and with many other desirable, within qualities for qualities for having qualities of a personality, qualities on behalf of personality or reliability. And here you come across a link between this notion of Godot and the Christian notions of redemption. You are redeemed of your sins. Redemption. That's the way certain religions talk about all these concepts, like sin and the punishment after death or on earth itself. Different religions disseminate it in different ways. Some religions talk about the punishment and problems you may come across after death for the sins or for the wrong deeds on earth. Some religions make you believe about it. On earth itself, you will answer for all the problems, all the wrong deeds that you do. In any way, you are reminded of the redemption, the concepts of redemption, sin, punishment, and you always try to connect it with the daily life. The concept of confession in Christianity, you come across that. That means you do, if you confess all the mistakes on your part, you are completely out of that, the effect of that erring, wrong deeds. So that again, different religions give it to you in different way. But here, even in that case, you can see every time, every flip of a second, you are reminded of the possibilities of something which is there, which is made to believe, or which is disseminated on grounds of certain religions, religious precepts. And these people also are waiting for Godot. In the same way, they may, sometimes we don't know why they are waiting. The play doesn't answer you, play doesn't get you any idea about it. So offer it up. My Catholic teachers would say in response to any minor complaint about unfairness or injustice. Just wait. And again, he makes a comment like this. That's about the theorist, analyst. He is giving like, offer it up. My Catholic teachers would say in response to any minor complaint about unfairness or injustice. So every time they try to connect everything with the religion. Even minor things they say like, offer it up, pronouncing like something like that. And you are reminded of the grand narratives of religion in that regard. Vladimir and Estragon then are trapped at the modernist stage and hence riven with the nostalgia for the lost wholeness of the past. This is what I mentioned in the very beginning, that they are not happy about what they are doing. And at that point itself, they are trapped at the modernist stage. If they are happy about their rating, if they are confident in whatever they are doing, they are not stuck. They are truly postmodern. But here we see these two people are always complaining, always in an irritated mood. And for Neelan, the kind of legitimating discourse which Vladimir and Estragon seek is parodied in Lecky's Think near the end of the first act. How to know deep about these characters? Other characters also are there in the play, Lecky, Poso. So legitimating discourse, they are seeking, this Vladimir Estragon, they are seeking some legitimating discourse. And we don't know how, whether they will be provided with that even after the arrival of Godot. And again you see the think as within chords, it's given think, parodied actually. That think, we feel them like not having any power to think, incapable of thinking. At the end of one act, one particular part is there when they suggest about, let us stop this waiting and go. But immediately the other one suggests that, no, anyway we have to wait, we have to come back again, so let us continue this waiting. So we feel them like they are not strong or confident in their decisions. That also is a difficulty. This parody of the totalizing meta-discourse of philosophy and religion, a practical demonstration of the language game of truth, which is all that is available to us. Actually, it's a parody of the totalizing meta-discourse. Like, when one character suggests like think, it's about a totalizing meta-discourse. You are parodying, you are actually making everyone aware that only that is available to us. It's a language game of truth. Your language game is valid in your own way. Why are you worried about, think about that. I know something about philosophy. Think about it. Assume that I know a lot of things about philosophy or science. If I talk about that to a particular, if I discuss that with the people who are well versed in philosophy or science or whatever, whichever discipline it may be, that is valid in its own context. As we told about the game, the rules of certain games which are valid in its own context. In the same way, the person's talk, the person's dialogues, conversations, perspectives, all those are part and parcel of that person's identity. And to be confident in that is very important. That is almost equivalent to the language game rule, which is very valuable, valid in its own way and its own context, its own playing and winning. But that is not applicable to any other game. In the same way, rules of chess have nothing to do with the rule of football, winning the football game or cricket, whichever other game. In the same way, person named A, that person's stance, conversations, ways of talking, ways of thinking, approaching life, people, behaving in a social gathering, all those are very particular and important and equivalent to a valuable rules of game in its own context. But that may not be really valuable, or that may not have much to do with another person named B. It doesn't mean that person named A's characteristics of all the kinds listed out, like ways of thinking, reading, doing things, speaking up, behaving in the gathering, all those are invalid. No. If one person, if all these things are valid for one person, that is valid in his or her own way. No one else should demand something else from them. And this is all what is available to all of us. This is the way we think that what we do is right and what others do is wrong. Or we try to assess others' ways of doing and thinking and approaching life according to our own standards, our own understanding and perspectives. That's where problems occur. That's why we talk about appreciating the difference. It says, Neelan, a narrative that disrupts and deconstructs all notions of universal, ahistorical, consistent meta-narratives, that all go those. Actually, Neelan says that a narrative that disrupts and deconstructs all notions of universal, ahistorical, what is told to be universal, what is told to be ahistorical, it's always existing throughout, consistent meta-narratives, that's all go those. Means each one has each person, each individual has the right to take her or his own philosophy of life, thoughts, perspectives as valid. You don't have to stick to others' standard. You don't have to mold you according to others' perspectives, the demands of the society. That's why we have inspirational thoughts like you stay your own, you be your own self, be yourself. By all this, we are communicating. You are talking against that meta-narrative, the concept of meta-narrative, the ideology of meta-narratives, which is demanding consistency. A student should be like this. A student should be like that. I tell you very frankly that one of the best students I have come across in my life, in Jamia itself, I tell you, I will never forget her, was one who got detained because she couldn't be okay with the papers, be okay with the syllabus content. Got detained. But she was one of the best in every other regard. Not even every other, in every regard. As a person, as a student, what we feel, what we want, what we prefer out of a student. Everything was intact in that girl. That's why I told you, she is my dream student. Dream, like we always say, like dream home, dream job. That's why I personally, as a teacher, I say she's my dream student. I've never come across such other person in my life, because I'm not evaluating a student, the concept of being a better, good student using the grand narrative of academic records of scoring some 90 to 100%. No. That's why we always remind you people that your academic records will not bring any appreciation on my part. Because in that regard, I'm fighting against the grand narrative called academic records, rank, mark system, all those. Mark system is the grand narrative. Rank idea of ranking students is a grand narrative in educational system. Now we can think about think about it in a different way. That's why these modern literary theories, which are built upon the concept of freedom, difference in perspective, all this become very relevant. Think about Kalam Sahib. No, it's Einstein or Kalam, I don't exactly remember. Don't judge the fish, the skill of a fish, by its ability to climb tree. Can it climb tree? Can it climb on a tree? No. Doesn't mean that it is not skillful. It can swim in its own way. But a person who can climb to the tree top may not be able to swim at all. Doesn't mean that that person is invalid. So this is the way we should not stick on to certain grand narratives or meta narratives in approaching and reading life and people in general. Everyone has his or her own valid way of seeing and approaching things. So that we are talking against all this, or deconstructing the notions of universal, consistent meta narratives. That means all Godos here you can see as a concept that is leading or that is talking about the grand narrative in general. Wherever you are trying to stick on to some grand narratives. Had Godot turned up, the implication is, what could he have offered but pious and pedantic gibberish of this kind? If he comes, this Godot, even if he comes, he may be giving them some instructions on grounds of certain religion, certain precepts of certain ideological power structures. So that's why it's pedantic gibberish. What do you mean by pedantic gibberish? Some teachings which is already promoted and disseminated in the society. Lucky has perceived this, hence his exuberant and joyous parody. But the others resist it. So his speech is met with violence. Lucky, Pozo and Lucky, those other characters also there, and think. When he thinks, when he says about think, instructs them to think, it becomes a matter of rudeness on his part, arrogance on his part, and it is met with violence. But he says like, this is going to get you nothing. This Godot is not going to get you much. You think in your own way. You act upon your own intuitions, maybe. The modernist, that is, wishes to go on believing in the toppled gods and Godos. But everyone cannot go against this concept of grand narrative like Godo, Godos, and many other teachings provided by the established institutions like family, religion, all those. So it's up to us whether to think in one way or other, to be in this way or that way. Okay, and Vladimir and Estragon for Neelan are throughout the play on the verge of a deconstructive breakthrough, but we can see them at least by their act of waiting, not by their act of waiting, but by their radical ways, like they are speaking out something very silly, unlike the characters whom we come across in different other traditional plays, traditional dramas, traditional portrayals. They are on the verge of a deconstructive breakthrough. You are irritated watching such a play because even when we talk about being in the postmodernist era, we are not out of our concepts of spending time in a fruitful way. Such grand narratives are always there with us, so that they are waiting, they are wasting time, they are silly conversations, they are silly tasks while waiting. All those are irritating us. We feel like, oh, watching this play, we are also killing our time. When they forget about Godo, they are happy and inventive in their language games. There they are postmodern, extreme postmodernists, like they are happy when they forget about this Godo. They become rebellious. Let us go from here. Why should we wait? But immediately they are coming back to that. That is a problem. Then they turn up to be modernist again, with the lament, with the complaints, with the nagging, all those. Reveling, we might say, in the openness and uncertainties of the postmodernist condition. The openness and uncertainties. Postmodernists are happy about that uncertainty actually. Actually, they are not unhappy about this uncertainty. It's an openness. That, we know only this is possible. That's the way this theory comes into being. So, the way it comes into being, like, this is only available after the World War. Completely it's scattered. So, whatever is available, we should be happy about it. Why should we why should we be in search of something which is not available? It's almost like philosophy. Searching for a black cat in a dark room which is not there. You are going for finding out some absolutes actually which is not there. Absolute which are not there. So this is an uncertainty and postmodernists warmly welcome that. But repeatedly they come back to Godo. But what to say? They are not completely postmodern. Repeatedly they come back to Godo. You will understand if you read that play. The suggestion to go away from there, but immediately one is reminding the other that no, anyway we have to wait. Who told them to wait actually? No one. But it's on their own accord they are waiting. But even to go out of that, to stop that waiting and to go in their own way is impossible for them. That's why they are stuck in certain absolutes. And the supposed restraints and imperatives he places upon them. The invisible restraints and imperatives. We all have such Godos in our life. Even if they are not present. When we start doing something, when we want to do something, we are reminded if they come to know about it, they will feel like this or that, and we stay away from that. Let's go far away from here. The same sentence that I mentioned right now. Let's go far away from here. Why should we wait? Let's go from here. Vladimir proposes at one point, to which the response is, we can't. We have to come back tomorrow to wait for Godo. That going is not a better suggestion, because we have to come back tomorrow. We have to come back tomorrow. Aisha, you please move the screen. We have to come back tomorrow to wait for Godot. We might characterize this view by saying that Vladimir and Istrakhan proved themselves in the end to have a modernist attitude to the fragmentation of truths and values which we have seen in the 20th century. In the 20th century, we come across such too many of such people, too many of this kind, who are stuck in their indecisions. They cannot take decision because they are still obsessed with the certain absolutes which are instilled in them already. You are taught like this is better, this is the best, and so you don't want to swim against that current. So that is a problem in general. Even though we pronounce ourselves to be the postmodern individual, we don't have a way out of that. Everyone at least at some point, even though you say like I'm very rebellious, I'm doing like this or that, there may be some point, something in your life which again and again throw you or make you stuck in the modernist lamenting phase. Then they long for a return to the lost fullness of purpose of the past. So their experience of fragmentation is nostalgic and angst-ridden. This is why they feel like they are not confident, as I already told, and their experience of this fragmentation is nostalgic and angst-ridden. They are unhappy about it. That's why they stay as modernist in many regards. They are not truly and completely postmodern. At times, they seem on the verge of making a transition or breakthrough, as Neelan calls it, the essayist Neelan, to a postmodern attitude in which fragmentation becomes a condition welcomed and enjoyed. But in the end, they fail to do this. At times we see them, we come across them to be very rebellious, like let us go, why should we wait and all. Or even in the act of they are doing silly things, they are completely postmodern. But whether they are confident about it or not is different. That student who is watching television before the day of the examination with a full confidence that I'm going to write the examination in a proper way. I'm going to be relaxed through by listening to my favorite movie or by watching my favorite movie. Is postmodern. But think about the same student who is scolded by the parents. That the person is before getting scolded, blamed, is confident that I can do everything better. I have prepared enough. No need to spend too much of time on book. But if the parental figure comes and scolds and blames for wasting time watching TV, if immediately the child feels like, if I am doing something wrong, I will not be able to write my examination in a proper way. What my parents saying, it's right that I am wasting my time, so I am going to suffer in the examination hall. The same person turns to be a modernist. The person is starting lamenting over the past or what the instruction or what you are supposed to do before the examination. You're supposed to be full time with the books. That's a meta narrative. And there you fail to go for this transition or breakthrough. But the same one, if the person sits with all confidence even after getting scolded by the parent, it's a postmodernist stand. The modernist or postmodernist dichotomy that underpins this reading could be applied to many other works. This dichotomy you can see in many characters. not just in this two or three portrayals, in many characterization portrayals, and mainly the modernist and postmodernist literature. You come across such inconsistencies, doubts, lack of confidence, or shifting confidence and lack of confidence. This is the postmodernist and postmodernist dichotomy. Are there any which stand out in your mind? Think about some books that you have read. Waiting, for instance, seems to be an important activity in the 20th century drama. This becomes a major motif theme in many of the 20th century literary creative pieces, like mainly in drama. Notably in the place of Harold Pinter, the dumb waiter would be a very obvious example. It was prescribed for you in the 6th semester as a core paper, as a part of one of the core papers. So you will come across the dumb waiter, the play, the dumb waiter. There also you come across such people who are waiting, who are doing something, who are going on with such discussions and conversations. And we feel that play also to be very truly fragmented, unlikely, boring. But this is the condition of a postmodern individual. All of us are actually stuck in such a crisis. Doubts, inconsistencies, everything. You might like to consider the value of otherwise of using the ideas of postmodernism in the explication of any of his plays with which you are familiar. Harold Pinter's many other plays also, you can see such waiting or such doubt, such tension. Okay, and another waiting play on which a very similar reading might be attempted is Anton Chekhov's The Three Sisters. The discussion on that shall be continued and will be resumed in the next class. Thank you so much for listening. Okay.